Welcome to the Social Business Engine podcast, where today's thought leaders discuss how they're using the latest social media strategies and technologies in marketing, sales, customer service, and HR. Get ready to be inspired as our guests contribute to your digital transformation through their stories, knowledge, and insights into what works in today's digitally connected world. And now, here's Bernie Borges, your host of the Social Business Engine podcast.
Hey there, welcome to episode 213. This is Bernie Borges, CMO of Vengreso and host of the Social Business Engine podcast. Hey, as always, thanks for listening. Hey, my guest on this episode is Rachel Stuve, Senior Business Analytics Manager at NICE Nexidia. Now, on this episode, Rachel explains how Nexidia Analytics enables brands to unlock the untapped value that's inside the massive amounts of unstructured audio, mostly phone conversations between customers and sales agents that happen in high volumes across many industries such as hospitality, financial services, healthcare, and technology, just to name a few such industries with high volumes of phone conversations between sales agents and customers. And then the value in converting this unstructured voice data into searchable data that enables companies to understand what's really being said by their customers, what's really selling and not selling, and why, and identifying opportunities to cross-sell, upsell, and generally increase operational efficiency and new business opportunities. Now, if this sounds too good to be true, wait till you hear the real-world examples of this type of analytics in action that Rachel Stuve shares on this podcast episode. Now, before we transition to my conversation with Rachel Stuve, I want to let you know that this episode is sponsored by SAP. Social Business Journal Volume 11 is a case study in savvy social selling the SAP way. This case study is available for download without a form to fill out. It's ungated. Just click to open the PDF in your browser at vengreso.com/SAP. Now, we'll link that up in our show notes page at vengreso.com/podcast. And now, here's my conversation with Rachel Stuve, Senior Business Analytics Manager at NICE Nexidia. Rachel, welcome to the Social Business Engine podcast.
Hey, Bernie. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I've been looking forward to this conversation. You work for a really interesting company, and I'm really excited to share it with my listeners. So why don't we begin with an introduction to NICE Nexidia and your role at the company?
Sure, Bernie. So NICE Nexidia is headquartered in Atlanta, Georgia. We are a subsidiary of NICE, which is a global business all over the world. And we have just over 25,000 customers, so a really good size organization across the world. And overall, the business focuses on three main areas. We look at customer experience, fraud, and surveillance and public safety.
Okay. And so you mentioned that it's a global company, customer experience, fraud, and surveillance and public safety, right?
Yes.
So the word analytics is in your main product, Nexidia Analytics. So why don't you drill down a little bit more and explain what is Nexidia Analytics?
Sure. So Nexidia Analytics is a product based on a really cool technology called neurophonetics speech analytics.
Wow, that's a mouthful.
It is a mouthful, and it's really, really interesting. And the really thing that I love about it is it's really powerful. What we do is we take massive amounts of unstructured data that organizations have, and we turn it into structured data so that organizations can conduct analytics across multiple different inputs and have insight into their business specifically to what's important to them at that time. And it's very flexible that it can change with the business over time as well.
Okay, so just to put a little bit more substance in terms of the day-to-day. So by unstructured data that companies are dealing with on a daily basis, we're talking about things like phone conversations, right? Voice, right? Call center people, sales agents, reservations people, having these phone conversations, email, social. Am I missing anything in terms of the type of unstructured data that companies struggle with that you're addressing with Nexidia Analytics?
Yeah, you hit on all of those. With the exception, we also do input survey data as well, which can be very valuable.
Okay, excellent. And what's your role at the company?
So my role, I am a business analytics manager in our pre-sales department. I've seen really this value of analytics for all sorts of customers and all sorts of industries. So it spans healthcare, financial, government, telecom, retail, really every industry that has any type of contact with the customer. I've seen the value of this analytics, and it's just absolutely amazing what people can do with this.
Okay. So I know that we're planning to give a couple of examples in this podcast episode, but before we get to that, I think it'd be useful for my listener to explain a little bit, without getting too technical, Rachel, but to explain a little bit kind of the core technology, because I'm really fascinated by what the technology does, the ability to analyze all this unstructured data so businesses can understand what's happening in their business and make decisions that can improve their business. Explain a little bit about how you're doing that with Nexidia Analytics.
Sure. So as I mentioned, the term that we use is neural phonetic speech analytics. And what that is a process by which we index against the sounds of a language and make the structured data. And the advantage of that is that there's no human interpretation of what might have been said. So it's much more consistent than having different humans transcribe audio data.
So you're saying there's no human interpretation. Is that what you're saying?
That's correct. There's no human interpretation, which leads to more consistency. And it's also much, much faster and a lot more flexible.
Interesting. So what are businesses actually doing with these insights?
So with the insights today, I'm going to focus more on the customer experience side of what we do. And what customers are doing is they're taking this analytics method with the Nexidia Analytics, and they're analyzing all of their data. And that's across omni-channel, as you mentioned earlier. And we can do that both real time or post interaction. And what they're doing is they're using the Nexidia Analytics to create a single version of the truth. And they're providing insight into what your customers are actually saying and how your organization is actually responding to that customer feedback. The thing that I love about it is that our insight really allows you to have an understanding of your current baseline so that you can base your analytics off of there. And the advantage of that is that many, many times what an organization thinks is their reality or what's actually happening is not the actual reality. And that's not what's actually happening.
I can see how that's true, Rachel, because I can imagine all those conversations that are happening, but yet the inability through human analysis to really understand what customers are actually saying, as well as how you're responding to that. So the fact that it's often not what they think it is, that must be very eye-opening for some of these companies. And in your role, because you're in a pre-sales role, maybe you can begin to give us a little bit of insight into, in your role in pre-sales, what is your experience in working with companies to actually roll out Nexidia Analytics?
So my experience has been very positive, both from the customer perspective and the NICE Nexidia perspective as well. The great thing about the technology is that we enable organizations to really have very timely and actionable feedback that an organization can use. So when organizations rely on more structured data, for example, as strictly surveys, not only is there a lag time in receiving that data, but there is that human element of interpretation that comes into that data. So with the Nexidia Analytics, we can provide very actionable and very quick feedback that organizations use in multiple ways. So organizations can use that for metrics-driven performance management. which is much more objective than subjective. They can also learn which of their products are selling versus which are not selling and have insight into specifically the customer's response to that. So we can really look at what features customers like or don't like, which could subsequently down the road allow an organization to be more flexible with product features to increase market share.
I can see how that would be hugely valuable. That's fascinating. Now, you mentioned in our preparation for this podcast that you have a proof of concept approach to implementation. You want to elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah. So the proof of concept is something that we really believe in. It's something that we do for our customers to show them that this isn't a gimmick or a one-time thing, that this is actually real and it works and it can definitely very much help you. So what we do is we take large samples of customer data and we run through the Nexidia Analytics, and we leverage that to showcase all the insights that an organization can gain through the Nexidia Analytics product.
In a proof of concept like that, I would imagine that it's done relatively quickly. And by that, I don't mean hours or days, but it's not years, right? It's something that typically a company is going to learn in a reasonably short period of time. That, as you said, it's not a gimmick. It's real. There's real value. Is that right?
Yes, absolutely. The average POC is weeks. So the insight is very, very quick.
Cool. Fantastic. That's kind of what I anticipated with no analytics to surmise that. All right. Before we get to the use case part of our conversation here, can you elaborate on exactly how does Nexidia Analytics support sales and customer experience at your customer? The companies that are implementing this technology, how is it supporting their sales and customer experience?
Sure. So what we do is we analyze the omni-channel data. So as we talked about before, a lot of that is the unstructured data, primarily based audio, but we have a lot of other inputs, surveys, chats, emails, all sorts of interaction data that an organization may have with the customer. And what we do is, because we can do that, an organization has a very holistic view of what's going on with their customer and what their customer's experience is with the organization all through the process. And what that does is it does take out some of that human interpretation that previously would have been there. It also creates a baseline so that organizations can more effectively measure the different levels of what their customers are experiencing. And it's not reliant on your sales agents or sales staff for what their interpretation of what is happening.
Not relying on humans' interpretation. Love that. Fantastic. All right. So I want to go to some use case examples next. But first, we're going to pause for a brief message from our sponsor, SAP. SAP has trained 12,000 sales reps across the globe in social selling strategies. SAP sales reps are skilled at identifying buying signals in social media, engaging prospects in sales conversations, differentiating themselves from competition, and leveraging a technology-driven sales process. The result is sales reps at SAP who use social selling practices have more than 5 times bigger deals on average than those who don't. To learn how SAP has implemented and maintains their global social selling program and what's next on this, get the case study in Social Business Journal Volume 11. It's available for download without a form to fill out at Vengreso.com/SAP. That's Savvy Social Selling the SAP way, available for download ungated at Vengreso.com/SAP. All right, Rachel, let's get to some real world, real life customer use cases. I know that you've come prepared to share a couple of those examples. So which one would you like to start with first?
Yeah, so we have a large amount of very great success stories that I'd love to share. But in the interest of time, I'll just outline one. that we had was a customer in the hospitality industry that was looking to improve sales effectiveness, and they wanted a way to do this. So what we did with the Nexidia Analytics product is that we helped them build a model that identified available properties when a customer would call in. And when that customer called in, if a particular property that customer was interested in was not available, what the model allowed them to do was train the agents to search for available alternates, and then gave tools and training to their sales agents to upsell those other properties. So it
properties, you mean, because this is a hospitality chain, so you're talking about physical properties, not some other definition of properties, like real property locations.
Correct. It would be a physical property that a customer would visit.
Got it. Thank you.
So what our customer was able to do was, through the analytics, identify the situations where there was an unavailable property, and then identify available properties, and subsequently provided the tools and training to their sales agents to upsell and recommend these alternate properties to their customers. And what happened was that the sales became more relevant and more personalized to the customer, especially in situations where the customer's first choice was unavailable.
And is the experience for the sales agent a really friendly experience? Are they getting these suggestions made to them in the moment, in real time, in a way that's just very easy for those sales agents to act on them?
Yes, there's multiple different ways for the feedback. So it's been very positive for the agents because they can get real-time feedback, but it also is helping the agents by enabling them to better do their job and to better sell. So it identified areas where the organization could give their agents more and better tools to do their job. So it was a very positive experience for all of the people involved. And the revenue increase was actually more than 4 times the initial projection.
Really? Wow.
Yes. So much more successful than anyone in the project even thought it was going to be. And we have very high standards.
Yeah.
So that was just really amazing.
So this is beyond proof of concept. This was in more of a long-term implementation, is where this 4x revenue attribution happened?
Yeah, that was within 1 year.
Fantastic. That's a great success story. Okay. Did you have another example you wanted to share?
Yeah, I have other examples. This works great. Also, we had another customer that was in the travel industry that was able to use the Nexidia Analytics solution to identify what their customers were actually saying, especially the more high value customers. And what they were able to do through the analytics was make real time and more relevant sales suggestions to these customers by customizing the benefit messages that the sales agents were giving to the customers. And ultimately, what this did was actually increase their conversion rate by 50%.
Wow. 2 fantastic examples. Okay. So like you said, I know you've got many others, and we, of course, have a time limitation on this podcast. Where do you see things going next? What's kind of on the near-term horizon for Nexidia Analytics?
So some of our real strong points are that we help organizations identify specific behaviors to increase conversion rates. We can help organizations make better upsell recommendations. We also help organizations target customers that may be likely to churn so that they can proactively reach out to save those customers. So we're building on the strengths that our customers really like of speed, analytics on what's specifically important to them, and analyzing omni-channel data. And we're expanding on that to increase our customer journey analytics. So we're working to integrate multi-channel communication where more organizations are communicating with their customers across multiple channels. So what we're working to do is provide organizations with a much more complete picture of that entire customer experience by analyzing all the different touch points that an organization would have with a customer. So that's really going to provide a 360-degree view of that customer journey. And the benefit of that is that not only will you be able to see what is going on during that call with your customer, but you can look at and see what's happening before and after. And it's really going to ramp up the analytical power that these organizations have.
Interesting. What really resonates for me, Rachel, is the whole increasing the customer journey across all the different channels. Because just thinking of ourselves as consumers, right? We are on different channels. And so for a brand to be able to understand our behavior across the different channels where we engage, it's fascinating at one level. And it's also brilliant when the brand has the ability to actually understand that customer's journey so that the brands can message to them as relevantly as possible and then empower their sales agents, their sales teams to message in a relevant way as opposed to messaging in a way that is meaningless and just completely misses the mark because the brand doesn't understand that customer journey and their experience. So that is truly, truly impressive. So really thrilled about this conversation. We get to the hard part now. And by the way, it's hard for me, not for you. And the hard part is I'm going to try to summarize the key points that we covered. And then, of course, I will ask you to either fill in any holes, or if I jog your memory on a point that you'd like to make, to elaborate or clarify or even correct anything that I cover in my summary, feel free. And then we'll bring this podcast to a wrap. So we began our conversation with an introduction to your company, NICE Nexidia, and your role. Your company is a subsidiary of the company, NICE, which is a global company, and you have more than 25,000 employees, and your flagship product is Nexidia Analytics. And it is based on neural phonetic speech analytics. At the beginning of this episode, that probably was a foreign statement, but by now, I think anyone that's still listening understands what you mean by neural phonetic speech analytics, where you are analyzing massive amounts of structured data, much of which is audio, phone conversations, that kind of thing, survey data, social data, and really allowing companies to analyze all these different multiple inputs and then really enabling those companies to sort of tap into the value, the insights in those massive amounts of data. And your role at the company is business analytics manager. You're in a pre-sales role. And we talked a little bit about how you all do proof of concepts. And well, actually, before I get to that, we talked about really the customer experience that your customers really need to have. They need to analyze their customers across multiple channels. They need to create a single version of the truth of what customers are really saying and how the team, the employees, are responding to that feedback so that they can then have a current baseline of understanding of what customers are actually saying and how their employees are actually responding to that. And then oftentimes those companies learn that the reality is not what they thought that it was. So essentially what you're able to do is to provide very timely feedback and information. It's actionable. Brands can learn what products are selling, what products are not selling, and really why, as well as what features customers like and don't like. And now we get to the way that you sell, and that is through proof of concepts, where in a matter of weeks, you're able to prove that Nexidia Analytics is a real thing. It's not just a trick. It has real business value. You're able to take large samples of customer data and then leveraging the Nexidia Analytics technology, analyze all the different types of interactions, again, including audio, text, social, etc., to really provide insights into the data about that organization's customer experience. And what customers love about it is that they can analyze all of this across multiple channels. It's omni-channel. It's not just, from one source. And it really provides a holistic view of the customer experience. It takes out all the subjectivity of human analysis, if you will, and really provides that baseline of understanding of where that company is today. And again, it's not reliant on people's interpretation, which is, again, the whole point of it's not dependent on someone's subjective point of view. And then we looked at a couple of examples. You gave the example of a hospitality chain who was looking to improve sales effectiveness. They built a model that identified unavailable properties that they sell when a customer called in. And then through your technology, you're able to actually make recommendations, alternative recommendations. There were tools and training to the sales agents so that they can upsell the available properties and created a better customer experience, but best of all, resulted in a revenue increase that was 4 times their projection. That's really, really fantastic. And then another example in the travel industry where you can identify what customers were actually saying so that, again, salespeople were able to have a more relevant experience by customizing the benefit message to their customers. And that had an increased conversion rate by 50%, which is really impressive. And the last thing we discussed, Rachel, was what's on the near horizon. And you really focused a lot on identifying behaviors so that your customers can upsell more, they can reduce churn, they can really focus on speed, analyzing data very, very quickly to really, really understand their customer journey, provide a more complete picture, and really provide that 360-degree view of the customer journey. So, Rachel, that's my summary. Is there anything that you'd like to add to it?
I think you did a great job with the summary. The one point is I just want to emphasize our ability to work with unstructured data. We do work with structured, but our sweet spot is unstructured data that we can then structure such that it is very usable to an organization.
Thank you for that clarification. The unstructured data, which is massive, right? Again, we were talking earlier about phone conversations, and so much of your core technology really is based on the voice analytics. Am I right?
Yes, that is the main part of our technology is that voice analytics. Very unstructured. We can do it very, very quickly. And as you mentioned, it does take out that human interpretation element so that we are more confident in creating that baseline than had a human interpreted that data.
Fantastic. Well, Rachel, this has been a truly insightful conversation. Where would you like to send my listener online to connect with you and learn more about what you've got going on at NICE Nexidia?
Yep. So they can check us out online at www.nice.com/analytics.
And would you like to provide anything for people to connect with you online?
Yes, I'm available on LinkedIn. You can look up my name or check us out online through the website as well.
Fantastic. Well, my listener knows that both of those will be linked up in our show notes page. So, Rachel, we'll wrap it right here. Thank you so much for joining me here today on the Social Business Engine podcast.
Great. Thanks, Bernie. I had a great time. Thanks for having me.
Well, I hope that you enjoyed my conversation with Rachel Stuve, Senior Business Analytics Manager at NICE Nexidia. This has been episode 213, titled Leveraging Analytics to Enhance Sales at NICE Nexidia. Now, my one big takeaway from my conversation with Rachel is the reminder that brands have massive amounts of customer interaction in unstructured data formats. And one of the biggest of those formats is phone conversations. In other words, voice data. And without a sophisticated tool, such as Nexidia Analytics, brands can't possibly understand the customer journey and customer sentiment, nor can they understand the best opportunities to upsell, cross-sell, or just provide a good support experience. Now, digital transformation is such a vast ocean of possibilities, and I know that's cliche-ish, but the example in this episode with Rachel Stuve from NICE Nexidia is an example of digital transformation enabling brands to truly have a 360-degree view of their customer's journey. That, to me, is more than amazing. It's innovative and really inspiring as well. So, hey, what is your takeaway from my conversation with Rachel Stuve? Just visit the podcast section at Vengreso.com to find episode 213 and leave your comments. Hey, I want to remind you that the Social Business Engine podcast is available at iTunes and Stitcher and Google Play, SoundCloud, iHeartRadio, YouTube, and also Spotify. Be sure to subscribe using your favorite podcast player because we publish a new episode every Wednesday. And this episode is sponsored by SAP. Social Business Journal, Volume 11, is a case study in savvy social selling the SAP way. This case study is available for download without a form to fill out. Just click to open the PDF in your browser at Vengreso.com/SAP. And of course, we'll link that up in the show notes page at Vengreso.com/podcast. Hey, while you're there, be sure to subscribe to get the Social Business Engine podcast delivered to your inbox each and every week. And if you're in sales or you know someone in sales, be sure to subscribe to my partner's podcast, Selling with Social, hosted by Vengreso's CEO, Mario Martinez Jr. Well, hey, that is a wrap for episode 213. I want to thank my guest again, Rachel Stuve, Senior Business Analytics Manager at NICE Nexidia. This is Bernie Borges, CMO of Vengreso, signing off for now and wishing you continued success on your social business journey.
Thank you for listening to the Social Business Engine podcast. Be sure to tune in again next week to reconnect with Bernie Borges for more insights, inspiration, and practical advice on social business. Visit socialbusinessengine.com to catch even more content on social strategy that will rock your business and your career.